Okay, last time I neglected to introduce, so I have to remember this is for an audience. This
Okay.
is Ryan Profit.
Hello.
He teaches primarily ninth grade language arts. Thank you, Ryan, again for being here. I very much appreciate it. So I'll try, to make this as quick as I can. Based on our last session, so last time we talked, we said that one of your goals would be to increase student engagement at the beginning of a lesson. So you got their buy-in after a time, but you really want to introduce a lesson. And we decided a tech tool that would help with that and, build them up would be Nearpod. And so what I did was I created a checklist to help as you're creating a lesson in Nearpod. And I sent you that. Do you happen to have that handy?
I do. I have it right here, actually. Thank
Oh,
you.
perfect. Okay. So what I want to do is I just want to go through this checklist. And then if you have any suggestions or things you want to change. Oh, did
Hold on
somebody
one
come in?
second. I'm so sorry.
That's
Miss C
okay.
just walked in. I apologize.
Okay. Okay, so where were we? I was telling you that I made a checklist that I thought might help. And
Yes.
so let's just take a look through that checklist. So at the beginning of each of these statements is the teacher is going to use Nearpod 2. My suggestion for this checklist would be that you start with like a brief video clip or a picture or just something to kind of prime the students so that, they see something on the screen that gets them started already. And then follow this with an open-ended question. So you had talked about wanting them to give more input. Okay. And you can invite students to submit responses by typing into space, but I mean, they'll all have their devices and so they can respond by typing in their responses.
Yeah, and that was really one of the things we talked about last time too, which I'm kind of excited about, is not only getting engagement sooner, but individualized engagement versus 2 or 3 kids for the whole class. So that's why I'm really excited about Nearpod, because some of them are just much more likely to engage if it's either A, anonymous, or B, it's not like raising your hand in the middle of class. So
absolutely, and I think this is just the right thing to do that. And priming them and then asking a question that they all have to think about and then giving them time to put in their responses. It may leave some dead air for you, but I think you'll be fine just, letting them go through that. And then once you've discussed this with the class, then you could, still using the Nearpod, introduce those major concepts, maybe provide examples of the major concept that you're going to talk about in this new unit, and then formatively assess. So you can, Nearpod allows you to do polls, or you could do practice or matching. I mean, there's a lot of options in there. And then you'll end by asking for feedback and questions that they might have to actually prepare you for your next lesson. So this is the checklist that I thought we would use for you to create your own Nearpod. Is there anything on there you'd like to see changed or?
No, actually, again, I've been kind of thinking up how I could use Nearpod in my next lesson, and a lot of this seems these seem like good questions and a good kind of guide to get what I'm trying to get out of it. So as I'm building it in my mind and actually starting to build it in general, this seems like good criteria to get what I'm trying to get out of it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help. Okay, so then if we agree on the checklist, you sure there's nothing that you want to add, change, delete? That's okay. I just want to be sure.
No, no, this looks good. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, absolutely.
At least not now. Maybe as I'm building it, something else pop in, but this is definitely a great start and looks like a good way to kind of track if I'm getting from the students what I need. And again, particularly for my own pedagogy, taking into consideration ways I can get them more involved more quickly. So thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, we discussed that last time, that they did buy in, just not as quickly as you might have otherwise wanted. And where everyone is involved instead of just the small usual 2 or 3.
Right.
So then our next step would be, I'd like to be able to model this for you, to model Nearpod. So it's just a matter of how you would like to do that. So would you like me to, come over to your classroom? Do you want to watch me do it? Would you like me to make a screencast, a video?
Probably given the circumstance, I would prefer a screencast or a video if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yes,
okay.
I can definitely do that. I can make a Nearpod and then I'll do a screencast as I walk through that Nearpod, and then I can just send that over to you.
Awesome.
That's actually, pretty easy for me to throw together. Actually, I can do that this weekend. So then we just need to plan a time for, like, I'll get that to you, and then maybe we could sit down maybe Monday during planning to discuss it.
Sure. Like I said, I'm in the middle of a novel, but I'm bringing other stuff in, so I can kind of play with the timing of it. So whatever works for you, as I introduce like a kind of like a little sub lesson in there is when I plan on using it. So I have some time, but Monday's fine with me. It works great.
Perfect. And then what I'd like to do too is get all the dates on the book, basically. So we'll talk about it and take a look, and then of course you'll have time to build your own Nearpod, and happy to help you with that one. And then when do you know when you plan to start that new lesson, when you want to use the Nearpod with your own class?
I was hoping to get it, if not, I mean, definitely before Thanksgiving break, but maybe even as early as the end of next week. That might be pushing it a little bit for me, but definitely the following week I was trying to get it in.
Okay, so I'll note down
together, but a couple, so maybe within the next 2 weeks, I guess is what I'm saying sometime.
Perfect.
But not necessarily. If that's going to put too much burden on you, I can wait.
Gosh, no, I want to work around you. So we'll keep it tentative, but we'll say you intend to do this end of the next week or into the following week, and you and I can touch base on that. That's no problem at all.
Okay.
All right, well, this sounds really good. It sounds like we have a solid plan, and once I make that screencast and model it for you and send that on to you, then we'll talk about it, and I'm happy to sit and work with you through creating one, or if you want to create it and then get my feedback, however you want to do that is fine with me.
Okay. Probably a little bit of both. I'll watch yours, and then as I build mine, I might be like, what do you think about this?
Yeah,
and then just
absolutely. Happy to help.
All right, thank you.
Let me turn off this. I'm going to click this off. Hang on, I'm turning off the recording.
Okay.
Hey, Ryan. So I put together, like we said, I put together a Nearpod for you, and this is just the student view. And so as we talked about, you would start with something, to capture their attention. I would start with this, on the screen in your room. And I'll let you sit there with it for just a moment. Just as a by, this is Jim Morrison back in 1970. Then the thought question. If you had 30 seconds to convince your best friend to take your place in jail for 5 years, what would you say? And this one I just included in there for a little bit of fun. But now you have an open-ended question. We talked about that. You leave them with that thought question. If you had 30 seconds to convince your friend to take your place, what points would you make? And this is where the students would get to enter their answers. This is where you're getting that full class participation. Then of course you can talk about it, and then you introduce your concept, which in this case is rhetoric. And again, you can use slides to introduce concepts. Here I just introduced ethos, pathos, and logos. And again, just going through it with them. Here, the students have an activity where they can match things. So it's basically a matching card, So they can match things together. And then you can reiterate, giving them additional images to work with, ethos, pathos, and logos. And then you can take a poll. Which appeal do they feel is the most powerful? And so you then can get the results and again have discussion over that. Then you can go through examples. This is where I talked about, doing this live, where you give them these examples and then afterwards, so we have pathos and logos, and then afterwards asking them for their opinion. And so the student can draw or type their answers in there. And just having a few of those. So basically, Nearpod really allows you that opportunity for basically for student interaction, for student buy-in, where it's all on the front end. And then you can leave them with, what questions do they have for you? I hope this was helpful.